Welcome to the channel, everyone. My name is Nick. For those that are new to the channel, hopefully by the end of this video, you do become a subscriber. So we have been talking about the big banks, specifically, how they are getting the green light for crypto. Back on the 29th, there was a great post from the Bitcoin.com news platform on X, where they did mention about how 5,000 plus banks just got the green light to enter crypto because the FDIC flipped the switch, essentially, that banks can now dive into digital assets with no prior approval needed. This isn't just a policy tweak, it's a massive U-turn from the cautious stance of the last 3 years. With both the FDIC and the OCC in sync, the US is fast-tracking crypto into the core of its financial system. From custody to stablecoins to blockchain ops, banks are now free to build. The FDIC and the OCC are cooking up a whole new crypto playbook. Is America about to lead the next wave of crypto finance? Now, you guys know that I have been very vocal about how the banks are getting the green light, how banks are going to move on chain in a huge way and offer, crypto-based services to their clients. This is going to be that big push on mass adoption because of the institutional mass adoption that's growing. Because once you have the institutions on chain, once you have them, in the space, they start offering their services to their clients. How many clients they have? Well, it's hundreds of millions of individuals tapped into these banks. And it's a global initiative as well. But on top of this post here, I have to admit, one big thing that is still an obstacle is regulations. All of the obstacles are getting removed, but one big obstacle still remains, which is regulation. Now, big shout out to Smoke Dog, because he did say one by one, every regulation that once held back the crypto industry for mass adoption is being dismantled. This is the path to regulatory clarity. We actually have here all of the major this is the full breakdown, essentially, of this policy that was holding back the banks from engaging in crypto. We have these policies and guidance should be rescinded or substantially revised. They are, and these are the ones, issued by the FRB, the OCC, the FDIC, issued jointly by the FRB and the OCC and the FDIC. And these are all of the obstacles around crypto for the big banks. And we have rescission or substantial revision of this guidance is only the first but not the last necessary step towards promotion of U.S. leadership in the digital assets and financial technology ecosystems. And yeah, listen, when we think about what's actually happening here, these are all major steps towards regulatory clarity. One by one, and slowly but surely, we are getting there to have 100% regulatory clarity, where we see prosperity around the space. And what do I mean by that? Well, it means we see the adoption, the integration, the utilization of this technology at scale, not by retail, but by the institutional players for retail, which will cause a tsunami of users to tap in, and they're going to be buying, selling, trading, locking up assets as well. We're talking about trillions on top of trillions of dollars on chain, moving 24/7, 365. And it all starts with regulation. I've always been a very vocal person about how regulations are that big enabler of everything that we've been talking about when it comes to price action or, how big these projects could be. It all starts with regulations. Now, on top of that, there's a great post from the Digital Asset Summit 2025 where we have, not surprisingly, the biggest obstacle for crypto has always been regulatory, and while it's not fixed yet, there's visibility and a path.
So when I'm out speaking, or I'm in the Middle East, or I'm in parts of Asia, or even Europe is a little bit more hesitant, if I'm just being brutally honest. That's been my experience. But if I'm in places where there's a little bit more of a gambling instinct, the sell now is that you have a ceiling that's basically unlimited. as the Navy says, it's CAVU, ceiling and visibility unlimited, and you have that now. And so therefore you can move people off of zero. You can get somebody into one of Chris or Ray's strategies a lot more easily today than you could 3 or 4 years ago. So
yeah, I mean, listen, when we think about what's going on here, the regulatory side, it's always been one big obstacle. And we're starting to see this change, especially over the last couple months. I would say like the last 3 months alone have been massive for the regulatory side. The discussions, the meetings, even the SEC crypto task force, guys, they're moving so fast on a lot of things to enable this. I'm very excited about that. But on top of that, we look at Ripple and we look at the Ripple and the SEC lawsuit. Now, big shout to Anderson for this. A lot of people think that this case is completely finished, but there is one thing that we are still looking at with this case, and that is institutional sales. We have here, I can't wait for the Ripple versus SEC lawsuit to officially settle. Bank of America? Question mark? Bank of America's relationship with Ripple. Now, we know that Ripple and Bank of America have a long-standing partnership. We actually have here that Ripple has been forging partnerships with numerous leading financial institutions globally. They do outline all of them. But in April of 2020, there was a partnership with the Bank of America, which was confirmed by Jolie Harris, the head of global banking at Bank of America, during an episode of the bank's Treasury Insights podcast. She stated that Bank of America aims to provide its customers with the ability to conduct transactions anytime and anywhere by integrating new solutions. She specifically mentioned Ripple alongside Swift as one of the bank's key partners. Moreover, rumors of a close relationship have persisted, with new hints surfacing regularly. For example, CEO Brad Garlinghouse reportedly said at the Ripple Swell 2022 conference that Bank of America would gain a competitive advantage by using Ripple's on-demand liquidity product once the ongoing litigation with the US SEC is resolved. Now, this is not the only time that we have been hearing talks about how Bank of America is ready once we see regulatory shifts. But again, the big thing that we're waiting for is the SEC to lift the injunction. This will allow Ripple to sell to institutional investors yet again. There is no update on this. There's no time on this at all. But we're definitely focused on this in a huge way, because this is like the last major step in order to have everything around this lawsuit completely cleared. But like I said, this is not the only time that we've been hearing talks from Bank of America on, offering crypto services or tapping into crypto in a big way. We know over here, big shout to XRP. This is from Bank of America CEO back in January. Check it out.
And so I think if it becomes regulatory okay, which it wasn't before, and that's one of the issues, you'll see the banking system enter with, we have hundreds of patents on blockchain already. We know how to enter the field.
So yeah, I mean, listen, these big banks, they've been preparing forever. And now that we're starting to see the obstacles removed, we are looking at what happens next. And even over here, we have Bank of America to launch USD peg crypto stablecoin if lawmakers pass legislation. It's pretty clear that it's going to be a stablecoin, which is going to be a fully dollar-backed. It's no different than a bank account.
It's pretty clear there's going to be a stablecoin, which is going to be a fully dollar-backed, type of thing, which is no different than a money market fund with check access. Is no different than a bank account, really. And so, if they make that legal, we'll go into that business. So you'll have a Bank of America coin and a U.S. dollar deposit, and we'll be able to move them back and forth because now it hasn't been legal for us to do it, but it's just done like another foreign currency. The question of what it's useful for is going to be interesting.
So there you guys have it. And, we know that stablecoins could be that big thing that Bank of America taps into even around the XRP ledger. Why do I say that? Well, because it's already happening. Big banks like Societe Generale are already launching stablecoins on these public blockchains like the XRP ledger. We know this back in November. They announced this, that it was going to be launching this year. But what's even crazier is the facts. The facts are banks are very optimistic about tapping in to crypto assets and crypto networks like the XRP ledger and XRP. Big shout out to Anderson for this. We have, why would banks adopt crypto such as XRP and other crypto assets? I personally feel that the biggest misconception is that banks really fear Bitcoin and other crypto assets taking over their business. What they really fear is big tech taking over, and global payments is a big part of that. Down below is a video of Chris Larson stating that if banks don't adapt to new cutting-edge technology and payments, big tech will simply take over. He said this already in 2017, and with great foresight, since Facebook later launched their Libra project in 2019, Facebook was one of the 8 big tech he mentions in the video. Libra ultimately failed because of regulations, but as he mentions, it will take time for regulations to be sorted out. But once they do, banks should be truly worried. People should realize that Facebook has over 3 billion active monthly users. That's over 37% of the global population. No bank comes even remotely close to those user numbers. Facebook can also adopt new technology rather quickly, which is in large contrast to traditional banks, which are extremely slow moving and conservative. Imagine Facebook offering a digital wallet to billions of users to transact globally instantly at almost no cost. It's not just about Facebook though. We know Elon has stated that X could take over half of the global financial system. In other words, banks will have no choice but to adapt to new cutting edge tech or be left behind. Central banks have similar worries. They don't want big tech controlling money movement over the world outside of their control. Thus, they have no choice but to partner with fintech players that can vastly improve their payment capabilities, especially cross-border payments, and build and improve other financial products such as the use of DeFi, etc. Could the banks just make private chains instead and leave public chains behind? Lately, we've had some good confirmation that this is unlikely to happen for a couple of strong reasons. One critical reason being liquidity. With a closed system, you'll always have limited participants, and thus it limits available liquidity. But overall, I believe this is the big story that is often overlooked, and it's extremely bullish for regulated crypto firms working to create an open, equal, and transparent financial system by changing the system from within, not trying to create an unregulated parallel system. And I completely agree. Check out this video clip.
But as far as what is the bank's motivation, I think the banks have understood that cross-border payments are it's a broken system today. And if you look at, global commerce is increasing obviously like this. Correspondent banking, which is the way the old system, SWIFT and correspondent banking is the way that the system works today, it's actually decreasing. So banks are pulling back from particularly exotic corridors where there's too much regulatory burden. ILP solves all that, right? Because you don't have to have a presence in each market. Again, reach is commoditized, right? So I think banks have understood that it's a broken system, needs to be fixed, and if they don't fix it, right now I'd say banks are well positioned, but the big 8 are going to eat their lunch. The big 8 being, Alibaba, Baidu, Tencent, Apple, Amazon, Google, Facebook. They are getting in the payments, and it will take them a while because they're not regulated entities, but you can't stop that. But I think the banks understand that. And there's a lot of movement going on right now in 17 and getting into next year as well.
Cool. Thanks.
Now, on top of that, if we actually go over here, this is Elon Musk also talking about, X. Check it out.
If done right, the X would serve people's financial needs to such a degree that over time it would become, I don't know, maybe half of the global financial system. If done right.
And then, of course, over here, we do have from Libra to DM. Now, again, this is how Facebook could have so much power that governments couldn't stop them. It would be the Silicon Valley dream because, of course, the user base and what they could do. Now, again, we know that regulations were the big obstacle there. Imagine if, a big player like Facebook or even X did launch something like this. I mean, mass adoption is almost immediately achieved. Almost immediately. just from one big player tapping in. This is why I keep saying that regulations are the big key that unlocks the tsunami of users and capital flooding this space. And who's at the forefront of this? Players like Ripple with XRP and the XRPL. Because again, the big banks are not missing out on this. They know what's happening. Just like Bank of America's CEO said, like they have, hundreds of patents around using this tech. This is something that should not be avoided. This is something that everyone should be looking into because this is the next wave. Institutional adoption is the next wave. It's already happening. It's already here. It's, starting even with tokenization. It's no longer about retail. It's no longer about hype. It's no longer about speculation. It's about what is going to happen next. And the big wave is institutional players. And Ripple, even if we go back over here, they have been forging partnerships for years with institutions before it was even a big deal. We're talking about at a time where people hated any institutional, focus in this space because they thought that, it was the death of crypto. Ripple was ahead of the game, as they always are. So this is something that I think is going to benefit Ripple greatly, benefit XRP greatly. And of course, the XRP ledger itself will probably see a lot of adoption from the institutional side because of those long-standing partnerships that Ripple does have. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, to notifications on. If you guys want more free content, you guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.